that's what pilgrimage allows, right? It allows you to journey for whatever reason you might have personally. And that discovery takes all sorts of different shapes. If you are traveling, you are there to encounter difference, not the same. And so, be joyous in that difference, be joyous in those unexpected moments. I think today, more than ever, it's more doable than it's ever been because there are a lot of different supports for different types of travelers. I would say to those holding out, I put it off, and then I had something that came up, my accident that stopped me from doing it. So don't put it off. There's a moment right now of people kind of craving reconnection and reconnecting through positive community engagement. And so the Camino kind of allows you to do exactly that. You have the hills, you have the valleys, you have the rain, you have the encounters, and so forth. So there's a parallel, right?
Pilgrims. This is Efrain Mendoza, your host for the Way to Your Way podcast. And today we have the honor to have with us Dr. Gerry Turcotte. He is the president and principal from the St. Mark College and Corpus Christi College that are affiliated to the University of British Columbia. And we have bring him here today because he played a very important part when we organized all American Pilgrims on the Camino and the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, and also an association of Quebec that is associated with the Pilgrims as well. They decided to organize a gathering event for the Pilgrims that was called Bridge on the Camino. And that took place on the facilities of the University of British Columbia. And Dr. Gerry is going to be talking to us today, and we're going to be asking some questions about. So welcome, Dr. Gerry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, no problem. So thank you for being here. So the first question that I have for you, when American Pilgrims on the Camino and the Canadian Company of Pilgrims and the Association of Quebec as well for Pilgrims, how do they approach to you to have the facility of UBC as host for this great event?
Honestly, I don't quite remember who reached out or why, but I certainly knew that a big event was planned for UBC itself. And, when I was chatting with some of the organizers, I said, if you're going to be here, you absolutely have to come through St. Mark's and Corpus Christi because we are very much engaged in these types of initiatives. We're not UBC, we're a standing entity. We have a parish here. And, I've always been passionate about the Camino. So just all those things came together and it seemed to work well in terms of, the passport stamping, because we also had stamps prepared for them. So all of this, I think, it was meant to be.
Okay.
That's kind of how it happened. But I don't really remember technically how it first started. I'm just thrilled that it happened.
Okay. And do you know how long it take to do all those preparations? Because that was a super big event.
Well, I wasn't one of the organizers, and I know they were working on it. They reached out to me more than a year in advance. So there was a lot of work that was done by the Canadian team to make this happen, and I'm in awe of their work. Our side was really quite relaxed because we prepared, made sure that our stamps were dynamic. We made sure that our space was welcoming. And then I had student volunteers who were also super keen to be involved. So I was able to greet the pilgrims when they arrived, to talk a little bit about the institution. But our students were also very keen to meet the pilgrims as they stamped their passports and so forth. So it was very much a community, a positive community encounter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I witnessed of that because that's the way that I met Dr. Gerry. And when you see everything that happened, that actually during May, those 4 days that was the gathering, everything was like you saw that it was going to be, or was better that you saw that it's going to be?
I had very high expectations because I have been associated with the Camino in one form or another for over a decade. So I knew how I was going to say passionate, but I should maybe say how obsessive Camino participants are about this. Like it is just it's a project of love, right? For people who participate in it. So I knew the people coming forward would just be keen, positive, community minded. Um, I was thrilled to see just how big it was and how dynamic it was. But I wasn't surprised because again, I've just been dealing with people who are passionate about Camino, and it's always at this high level of enthusiasm, of excitement, and authenticity. So I guess a truer way to say it is that it fulfilled my expectations about how wonderful and how cool the event was going to be.
Okay, that's great. So for people that don't know, on the event, on the gathering, were about 400 pilgrims from different countries, but the majority of them were from Canada and the US. But then we have very good moments. We have several presentations from different speakers during those 4 days that we were there. And at the end, we also have the opportunity for the pilgrims that wanted to go to the mass. We went to mass as well. And then everything happened during that facilities for UVC. And I have another question for you, Dr. Gerry. So regarding, I know that you have wrote so many books. And those books, I also know that you mentioned that you have written a little article regarding the Camino, even though that you have not made the Camino personally, but you wrote something about the Camino. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, I think from our previous conversations, it has always been something I've been passionate about. I've always wanted to do the Camino, and I was planning a trip to do the Camino when I had a very catastrophic accident, and so instead of going on the Camino, I ended up in a wheelchair for 8 months, and then it affected my ability to walk for almost 5 years. So that was the tragic side of it because I had been kind of planning, to be um, actually a pilgrim on the Camino Trail. I was also working in a couple of my other positions. I was president of another university at the time. So I've always been involved with facilitating individuals going on the Camino Trail. And it's always been on my bucket list, as they say. It is for me, a fulfillment of it's both a spiritual but also a social um, journey, if you will. So that's how it's been a part of my life, and I'm certainly recovering. I'm not 100% yet, even today, in terms of the ability to walk, but I'm hoping that I will undertake this in the next few years for sure.
Okay. Well, that's great that you're gonna soon it's gonna be able to have the chance to walk that the Camino. And then when that first moment happened that you first think about the Camino, do you remember when was that?
Not really. I because I've been working in Catholic post-secondary education for such a long time. I'd say it's always been there. It is a jewel in the crown of pilgrimages, of course. And I've always been fascinated with the idea of pilgrimage. So I think it's just always been there on my bucket list, really.
Okay. You probably know as well that the Camino, about the 80s and 1980s, there were going very few people through the Camino because it was like a kind of abandoned
Yes.
because too many problems had happened during the last century and then previous centuries, too many wars, so the Spanish flu and all that happened. But then after 1989, it started getting recovering. And nowadays, we're talking that about probably last year, almost 500,000 people went that got the Compostela. So, and then all that people that are going there, what I have experienced on the time that I've been there is that people are very happy about the moment that they are living, even though that they may have so much weight on their back, or they may have blisters, or they may have too many things reason that they are having challenges. And then also when we went on the UVC in May, all those pilgrims that were there, I don't know if you feel it, but the happiness all around was something that you cannot describe unless that you see it. What do you attribute to that effect? What would you say about that?
Well, many of the pilgrims, not just at that big event, but there have been a couple of other small Camino pilgrimages from the Canadian group who have come to specifically our campus for stamps and so forth. All of those individuals are incredibly, as I said before, really positive. I think there's a sense of community, which we lost in a very significant way during COVID as well. There's a moment right now of people kind of craving reconnection and reconnecting through positive community engagement. And so the Camino kind of allows you to do exactly that. It allows you to be all sorts of different communities, ethnicities, ages, and to suddenly have a common purpose, which is this journey. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious journey, but it can certainly be a spiritual one, defined however you want to define it. And that's what I kind of saw in terms of people coming together, that they were breathing somehow, a sense of relief, to leave maybe behind, even if it's temporary, a lot of those pressures that you just described, through that moment of encounter. And that's what pilgrimage allows, right? It allows you to journey for whatever reason you might have personally. And that discovery takes all sorts of different shapes. But what I encountered, without the specifics of everybody's journey, was that sense of almost of relief, of joy, of community that really came through very clearly.
Yeah, that's correct. I have seen that as well. And the also that is related with life as well. So the Camino is just a period of time where you are walking the Camino, but the what you face on the Camino, you face it in life in a different way, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have a way of connection. And then I've been also asking questions always how you can relate the Camino to your day-to-day life. And when talking about day-to-day life, I talk about specifically about work or going to do a career and in a university as well. And those are very related as well because you have challenges on all those aspects of your life. What would you say about that?
Well, in some ways, it's quite a dynamic metaphor, right, for the path you walk every single day. And you have challenges, you have ups and downs, you have, challenges. And, the Camino, metaphorically, but actually does the same. You have the hills, you have the valleys, you have the rain, you have the encounters, and so forth. So there's a parallel, right, between the challenges you undertake every day in that journey through life that you take through the Camino journey, and there is something magical though about Camino and the way it allows you to walk almost beside your life and to bring those challenges with you and to think about them and to process them. Because day to day, we often don't have that opportunity to stand and reflect on the challenges that we're facing, and that's why pilgrimage is important. Pilgrimage allows you to I always think about it as you are walking beside your issues and your problems and your opportunities, and you have a chance to reflect on them.
Yeah. And sometimes when you have the time to reflect on them, you find out that the solution to those issues was something that was so quick to fix. But
Or you realize they're not as serious as you might have thought they were, right? It also puts things into perspective sometimes.
correct. But in the Camino, because you have time to walk and you have time to reflect and all that, you have plenty of time to think all about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to have those pauses as well at work or when you are going to a university as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then talking about the university, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I have done 2 interviews to two professors here in North Carolina State University, where they run a program that is called Study Abroad at the Camino de Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
And those two teachers, they are very excited about the program that they have and how that transmit to the students of the university. I believe that the last time that they went, that was around May. They went about probably 25, 30 students with them, and all of them have a very good time there. And they did it in the university. They did it with a part of the trip was going to Barcelona, and then the other part was going to a section of the Camino. I believe that they walk about 100 kilometers. And what you say that programs like that are important to educational institutions?
Well, I've had the pleasure of, supporting or creating these types of study abroad or service learning related programs, in my time in the universities. I'm certainly keen to explore the possibility of a Camino one, um, down the road, no pun intended. But I do know that for the ones that we have run to Rome and elsewhere, that students come back and they say they're changed by the experience. We do often live in a kind of a cultural bubble, and it's really important to get out of that bubble to encounter the world. You can read about the world in a textbook, but unless you walk those streets that you read about, it's a very different experience. So those types of study trips that you're describing, it allows you to kind of relocate your center of gravity. And for students, especially if they're younger, it can be a real cultural shift for them to see the world a little bit bigger and wider, more complex and richer than they might have otherwise expected.
Yeah. And then all those Caminos also experience, and that's something that we are going to do as well here in North Carolina. You can bring those walk also local as well, because the fact that you have a time to walk, the Camino is great, but you can also have your walks in where you live.
Yes.
And you can reflect where you live as well. And if people have a chance to do something like that, they also are going to be able to transmit or to translate that to their day-to-day life. And what recommendation you will give to workers, students, to be more on the outdoor environment? How would you say about that? What would you say about that?
Well, I guess I see a lot of different groups, our own on campus or through our parish, that organize localized hikes, for example. I know that two of the Camino groups that came to our campus for their stamps are actually doing pre-Camino pilgrimages within Vancouver, for example. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to do that kind of work and to explore, our own communities more widely. Um, I think we've seen it in terms of the hiking culture too. So Vancouver is very, very rich in hiking paths and so on and so forth. So students do that also quite naturally, right, as part of the everyday. I think the Camino does something a little bit extra because it puts a dimension on top of this that has such a deep historical and for many, spiritual depth to it that transforms it. The irony is, I was, backpacking through Europe in the 90s, and I probably walked most of the Camino without even realizing it. I spent a lot of time in Spain, a lot of time in Portugal, a lot of time in France, in Italy. I bet you I walked that without knowing it. I would say that doing it in the context of understanding the Camino would have changed that experience completely. And so there is a difference to creating a space, a mythology, even, like, I mean that in a positive sense, about the importance of community and encounter, which is that extra special thing. So yes, you're right. Locally, you can do this, and you must do it because it also lets you encounter your own diverse community at home, and that's so important. But that extra step, or those extra 1,000 steps, that the Camino allow, can really transform it and take it to another level.
Okay, that's good. Do you have any idea of those? Because you were hiking in the 80s and all that. Do you have any idea how many kilometers have you walked?
Oh, I would have walked hundreds and hundreds of kilometers because I was just, I had no responsibility. I was on the road with my pack, sleeping sometimes, in literally sometimes in snowbanks, sometimes taking the night train when I could because I couldn't, afford accommodation. So I walked, when I was hitchhiking, wherever the car dropped me,
Okay.
So I would say hundreds and hundreds of kilometers for sure, And
Okay.
ironically, I think I would have overlapped with a lot of the Camino trails just because of where I was without realizing it. It
Okay.
wasn't as structured as it is now, back then.
Yes. Nowadays, so is that there are the signs are
Yes.
everywhere,
Yep.
because also it's part of the European community, and they have rules, so everything has to be marked, because those are ways, or are kind of green ways on some local so municipalities, so they have to take care of that as well. But
Exactly.
because you have walked all that amount of kilometers, and you know what is important to have to do a hike like this one, or a walk like this one for the Camino. And what would be your recommendation for someone that have no walk any big distance like this one? What recommendation would you give to those people?
I'm the wrong guy to ask because I did this when I was young and fit and healthy, and
Okay.
so I'm an older gentleman now than I was back then, and I think taking care now is important because many of the citizens, and including one of my board members, just told me that she's heading off to the Camino, I think next week, and so she's been practicing her walking, and she's been doing up to 19 kilometers a day. And her comment was, I'm in a lot of pain from walking this because I haven't been walking, so she's getting used to the shoes. She's getting used to more daily walking and so forth. So I think if you're older, it's just building up to it, and maybe that gets back to your earlier question about doing the local pilgrimages to get also ready for the longer walk. And I know the Camino also has different opportunities for you to be transported between sites as well if you can't walk it, But I guess it's certainly age dependent. Be realistic about your health and so forth, and get ready for it. I think that's really important too.
Yes, and you have to be ready for the unexpected as well, so
Yep.
that can happen.
Yep. Yep.
And even if that happen, that's not a way to feeling frustrated, because you still have accomplished part that you travel already there,
Yep.
and you have to appreciate that the opportunity that you have being there.
Yeah, I think it's a fundamental rule about travel anyway. I've spent so much time on the road. I mean, I've visited over 60 countries, and I can't tell you how many times I met travelers who were frustrated because they were in a place and it wasn't like home. And to me, this boggles the mind. Why you would travel somewhere else to find what you had back home is beside me, right? If you are traveling, you are there to encounter difference, not the same. And so, be joyous in that difference, be joyous in those unexpected moments, because that's literally what opens the soul, what opens the mind, right? It's that you are outside of the familiar.
Yes, and I probably know that majority of people that wanted to go to the Camino take some time to do research, and sometimes that research maybe 6 months, year, 2 years, 3 years, and there are people that start thinking and they don't even do it as well. And what would you say to those people that they have the opportunity to do the pilgrimage, but they do not finish? They do not take the final decision to go because they think that it may be something very complex. What would you say to them?
Well, I think today more than ever, it's more doable than it's ever been because there are a lot of different supports, for different types of travelers. But my experience would be what I would say to those holding out. Um, I put it off, and then I had something that came up, my accident that stopped me from doing it. So don't put it off. You don't know what's coming. If you have the opportunity, I jump at the chance because, life gets busy and you might find that you're in a different place, a different situation where you can't do this. I think sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And then regarding the experience, going back to the experience of the gathering that happened on UBC, and what moments did you like the most and why?
I think what I was suggesting before, just the encounter with all the different groups, the different communities, the Spanish ambassador, like it was just so exciting to see everybody almost with childlike excitement, right? And that's really quite unique. Academic conferences, I would not say there's this kind of childlike excitement. They can be really um, overly serious or they can be really busy, but this really had a sense of joy about it. And that's special. You have to lean into that and really take advantage of that. So that's what really struck me was how many people were genuinely excited about it, that were almost talking over each other in excitement about what they had done, what they were planning to do. That is really infectious. That kind of energy.
Yeah, that environment is really hard to have it for a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that is connected with work life, because if you do something like that, experience something like that you can accommodate that to your also a work day as well.
Yeah. And I think for me, I was also living the Camino vicariously, since I hadn't had a chance to do it. It was fun to hear people's stories because many had done it before, right?
Yeah, you have no chance to do it, but then 400 people came to your university to talk about that with you.
Exactly.
So what would you be your final advice to pilgrims that wanted to walk the Camino?
I would say, don't put it off. You never know what's coming down the road that might prevent you from doing it, all sorts of responsibilities and so forth. But if you have a window where you can take this journey, it's worth doing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gerry, for your advices today and be talking with us. And thank you, Pilgrim, for watching another episode of The Way to Your White. And then please keep adding the comments to the comment sections. That way we know other guests that we need to bring here to our program. And buen camino, everyone.
Thank you so much.